From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, bugs, it's what's for lunch in one part of the world. We'll give you an inside look at this unique farm. After the floods, what does the future hold for once fertile ground?
Some of it probably will never be farmed again.
And the battle to get propane gets harder and costlier for many producers.
You're talking about issues of quality that could be substantial.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado and the all-new Silverado HD, the strongest, most advanced family of Silverados ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The propane shortage crisis in the Midwest is growing. In some cases, could become life-threatening. Just look at this long line of trucks waiting to fill up in Garden City, Minnesota. Now, we counted 18 trucks in this video waiting outside a tank site to get loaded up. Many of these truckers facing long drives, with demand now stretching to more places in the country. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan joins us from our Kansas City studios. Tyne, this isn't really a supply issue.
That's right, Clinton. From what we're hearing, there is supply nationwide. There's just a shortage in states like Iowa, Minnesota, as well as Wisconsin. We talked to one Iowa propane supplier who told me he's having to drive to Kansas to get supply, and even then, trucks are waiting 30 deep and 5 hours just to fill one single truck. ProFarmers Inputs Monitor's Davis Michelson says governors in states like Iowa and Minnesota have already declared a state of emergency, with other states like Nebraska joining this week. That's helping trucks forced to drive hundreds of miles just to find pipeline terminals with propane supply.
I talked to Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Nag yesterday, and he pointed out that would include waiting in line at propane terminals. He said that some trucks are traveling from Iowa as far as Kansas and could be looking at trips as far as Texas to get propane to bring back to local areas, and that's where those hours of service waivers will really help out.
Longer drive times means added costs, with some propane retailers telling me it's added 30 cents to every gallon, a cost that will ultimately be passed on to buyers like farmers. That's not a good sign for balance sheets, as farmers are experiencing a wetter than normal harvest that's hitting all at once, really pinching the supply stream and now their profits.
This becomes a very significant cost on a per bushel sense for producers when they either have to pay that extra cost for the propane or they even can't get access to it. You're talking about issues of quality that could be substantial. Lots of things can go wrong when you try and skirt around not being able to dry your crop.
While states like Iowa are short on propane, University of Missouri's Seth Meyer says supply is there nationwide. The issue is the pipeline system can't redirect product easily.
But there is propane to be had. There's an unusually large amount of propane stocks down in the Gulf. So what you'll have to see is so we've seen, for instance, trucking regulations being loosened. You got to figure out how to get that propane from the Gulf back up to the Midwest. The system isn't necessarily designed to do that.
In some cases, farmers are already having to halt harvest, waiting on propane and drying capacity. And that issue could get worse, as a colder than normal November means propane needs from not only livestock producers, but hospitals and schools could come earlier than normal as well.
I just heard from Northeast Iowa, and we're told that some of the propane marketers in Northeast Iowa have literally stopped hauling LP to dry corn. They know that they only have a certain allocation that they're going to receive yet this year, and so they have to save that for home heating and for the livestock confinement facilities.
And Clinton, now we're hearing from some producers who are deciding to store that wet corn, sometimes even on the ground, take that quality risk and wait until when propane are at more adequate supplies this spring, as well as at more affordable prices.
You know, that's interesting. As you mentioned, we're hearing that these liquid propane prices are already up 30 to 50 cents. Have you heard if anything can be done to get propane supplies to states like Iowa?
Well, Clinton, that's the question that I've been asking several sources over the past few days. And from what I understand, it will take the governors to declare this a life-threatening situation. If they do that, that could shuffle the deck in the pipeline and force them to ship more propane up north to get those supplies that we know are down south, to get them to the areas that really need it, like states like Iowa.
Interesting stuff. Thanks, Tyne. We'll continue to follow this story. And people who use propane to heat their homes are going to be turning it up this week with another blast of Arctic air on the way. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins us now. And Mike, we're not just talking about one round of cold, but two.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. In fact, the second one is much colder than this first blast of cold air that's coming in. And it's as we speak, basically. Jet stream, that river of air several miles up, bringing it right off of Alaska at this point. And so that's bringing the very cold air in. It relaxes a little bit as we head through the weekend, and then boom, a direct shot of Arctic air right off the Arctic Circle. You can see the lines there on the jet stream straight from the Arctic Circle right down to North Dakota, and that's going to spread the cold air much farther south, well into the Central Plains, well into the Ohio and Tennessee river valleys. Even the southeast is going to turn chilly on this one as we head through the early and middle parts of next week. We'll have more in your forecast over the next few weeks coming up in just a little while.
All right, thanks, Mike. And concerns about wet crops and wet fields don't stop. As AgDay National reporter Betsy Gibbon reports, farmers along the Missouri River are concerned about what this year's flooding could mean for the future.
Michael Stenzel is harvesting outside of Hamburg, Iowa, a surprise after the spring he describes in one word.
Hell. Plain and simple.
These are his grain bins in town, which busted during March after floodwaters ravished the town. They still stand today with grain.
Still sitting there, rotting, decaying, smelling.
He is looking into federal disaster aid relief passed by Congress, but he doesn't know if he will receive any or which amount just yet.
Payment limitations is $125,000. The way I figured it, I lost close to $460,000. I'm not going to complain because they didn't have to give us anything.
The bin compensation program should go relatively smoothly once the proper paperwork and data checks are involved.
But no checks have been released as of yet.
No, not as of yet.
Back in Iowa, some farmers like Mike Waltemath can't get to every piece of land.
And we're trying to repair the ground. Some ground, had holes washed in it. Some of it probably will never be farmed again. There'll be some of it that has been, damaged beyond repair.
An Omaha representative with the Army Corps of Engineers tells AgDay the levees along the Missouri River near Hamburg will be under construction for at least 2 years. It brings up some questions, especially about crop insurance.
Will they consider our ground a high risk if the levees are not back to the full height?
If the levees aren't put back to the way they were, are they going to even give us insurance? Well, I've told all of my landlords that I farm for on the river bottom that if I can't get insurance, I won't farm it.
Grower does have coverage in the next season in cases where levees were breached or situations like that. That ground would still be insurable, but in some cases it can be re-rated as high-risk land.
Moore says those cases and rates depend on the risk management agency.
Those rates commonly can run 3 to 4 to 5 times higher than the regular rated land that's not high risk in that same county. Those rates are redone every year by the RMA.
An attempt to return to normalcy with fields and farmers submerged in stress if waters rise again. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is scheduled next week to make a stop in Brazil. And the South China Morning Post reports the visit there may be too soon for him to sign a Phase 1 trade deal with the U.S. Some had thought Xi would stop in the U.S. on his way to Brazil to attend a summit on emerging markets, but it's reported the two sides continue to work on details of the agreement. Now, a source for the South China Morning Post saying one of the ideas is for Xi and President Trump to hold a summit in the U.S., but China would not agree to it. The two sides have been looking for another site to sign the agreement after the cancellation of the APEC summit. Sites being talked about include Iowa, Alaska, and Hawaii, but so far there's been no announcement. When we come back, a look at the current pace of export sales and how that may translate into demands for the current crop. And later, it's feeding time at this farm, but we're not talking about feeding livestock. Details on what's becoming a popular trend in one part of the world ahead. Jim McCormick, agmarket.net, our guest here at AgDay today. Jim, let's talk about our export sales numbers. What's your read on where we sit at this time?
Right now, where I read it, unfortunately for the corn market, it's a big problem. We're just not selling the corn. We have not been competitively priced as of late, and it's showing. The exports have not hit the government's targets. If we do not see something change dramatically, the government's going to have to lower that number. The good news, though, Clinton, is our price ratio, our price level compared to South America, it's narrowing. We're getting a little bit more competitive. As a feed ingredient, we're cheaper than feed wheat around the world. So we are anticipating, as the Argentinians and the Brazilians run out of grain, the demand will come back to us and hopefully bring this market back up on the export side. The bean sales have been very good due to the fact that China's been buying beans to try to grease the skids to get this trade deal done, and that's a good sign. Hopefully that'll continue. I am a little bit leery, though, because let's face it, these trade talks have been so rough at times. Until they take delivery of it, there is a risk they could always cancel it, so that's something we need to keep an eye on.
Is there potential to kind of make this a decent year or an okay year? Or do you feel like, we're going to get to the point kind of where we call average?
I think they've still got a shot. I mean, it is a long, long marketing. Remember, the marketing just started this fall. The dollar's weakening a little bit right now. It hit some chart resistance. The dollar weakens a little bit. You have some production issues in South America. They weren't off to the quickest start. So no, I think you've got a shot that you will see some of that demand come back in the United States. Like I said, we're getting more competitively priced. And when that happens, the demand will come to the United States because we definitely have the bushels to sell them.
Yeah. If we talk about demand here at home, it seems like some of our local demand is pretty strong.
The demand is very strong right now, and part of that has to do with last year's crop was a little bit smaller than people thought at the very end. And the demand, I think the government has kind of underestimated feed demand. We're feeding so much big livestock numbers right now, a record amount of protein being produced. The feed demand this year is down dramatically from last year, which suggests that we got better feed out there, so that's good for the producer. The ethanol industry has come back a little bit. We had some plants shut down, but in general, the revenues are coming back in, and that's bringing it back online a little bit. And then just lastly, we're not getting out of the field. So the basis, so this strong demand locally is helping the basis, and producers, don't be afraid to lock that in.
All right, well, appreciate the advice. Thanks, Jim. We'll be back with more AgDay coming up.
To contact Jim McCormick at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net.
Hey y'all, Justin Moore here. Get ready to kick up some dust with the Roxor Dirt Roads and a Country Show sweepstakes. Enter now for a chance to win a customized off-road Roxor and 2 VIP tickets to one of my upcoming concerts. Visit roxoroffroad.com/Justin Moore.
Welcome back. Here with meteorologist Mike Hoffman looking at the weather map. And Mike, this is absolute mess here in the middle of the country.
We have a computer model that's actually putting snow early next week into Louisiana. I don't believe it for a second.
Oh my gosh, whoa.
Way too early, but this is an early snow pretty far south. I mean, when you're talking early to mid-November and you're looking at snow in the northeast or New Mexico, not the mountains of New Mexico, but the northeast corner into the panhandle of Texas, that's very far south. And we're going to have snow over the next 12 hours on the northern fringe of this rain behind this cold front, really across parts of Missouri all the way into southern Illinois, Indiana, northern Kentucky, southern Ohio. Those are all areas that are going to get snow. Now, the mountains of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and into the northeast, you're going to get snow sometimes this time of the year. But everybody else, that's kind of unusual, very unusual. It's going to be a cold rain then behind that front. And the front's all the way into South Texas by the time we get to later today, into northern portions of Georgia. That will continue to push southward into the central Gulf of Mexico by tomorrow morning. Next system then is not going to have a lot of moisture with it, a little bit of light snow, but it's going to begin to usher in the truly Arctic air behind it as we begin to see it. Now, there is one more system that's going to ride along that front, so it's not going to blast southward until later Sunday into early next week. All right, let's check precipitation estimates past 24 hours from northern Texas into northern Arkansas. We've seen some decent amounts. Adding in the next 36 hours, you can see how that continues to spread southward across Texas. That whole area could use the rain, so that's not a bad thing at all. And you can see just scattered amounts as we head into the southeast and the eastern seaboard. Snowfall amounts then have mainly been across the Great Lakes over the past 36 hours. Next 24 to 36 hours, you can see not a lot of accumulation across any parts of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. But by the time you get closer to the northeast and even eastern Ohio, you do start to see some amounts. There's the temperatures this afternoon, very cold across the northern tier of states, still mild in the southeast and southwest. Lows tonight going to drop off into the teens in parts of the northern portions of the plains, and you can see that cold air is going to remain tomorrow for a good chunk of the country. All because the jet stream is going to continue to bring in the cold air. It relaxes a little bit Saturday and Sunday, and then the direct shot of Arctic air comes in after that. You can see, though, things do try to relax somewhat as we head toward the end of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Bakersfield, California, first of all, lots of sunshine, very warm, high of 82. Moorhead, Minnesota, mostly sunny and cold, high 27. And Birmingham, Alabama, variably cloudy, maybe an afternoon thunderstorm around, high of 66 degrees.
A second human case of a rare infection that normally only affects cattle is under investigation. Plus, what is cattle producers celebrating these days? That story next.
AgDay, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
Over the past 10 days, cattle producers have seen a significant price rally, and there may be even better days ahead. Drovers reports futures prices have rallied 18% since early September. Cash cattle prices are 15% higher, much of the rally due to continued strong beef demand. Wholesale beef sales volumes last week nearly doubled, and retail beef purchases into next year reached the highest level in nearly 2 years.
Traders say the market is showing exceptional strength ahead of the reopening of the Tyson beef plant in western Kansas. All choice primal cuts are selling at higher prices compared to last year, and there is a significant price spread between choice and select cuts.
Last year, heading into the holiday season, beef demand was high because retailers were able to buy high-quality meat at lower prices. But this year, analysts believe prime and choice ribs will not be as accessible and prices will be higher. Retailers also expect both turkey and ham will cost less this year, and that could hurt holiday beef demand too. A Nebraska woman has become only the second known person to contract a rare infection that normally affects cattle. The infection caused parasitic worms to show up in the woman's right eye. This was first reported in Live Science. The woman believes she got the infection while running on a trail near the California coast last year. She says she felt something in her eye, and when she tried to get it out with water, a roundworm came out. That was followed by 3 more. Health officials say the infection is carried by flies that ingest eye secretions. Researchers say this case may suggest an emerging disease that can spread from animals to humans. Well, still ahead, not worms, but bugs. Why some are bagging them up and calling them a snack. Next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry. Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
So what's your favorite go-to snack? Salted peanuts, potato chips, how about crispy crickets or barbecue-flavored silkworms? Yeah, those are real foods, and they're becoming a thing in Thailand. Check out feeding time at this farm. You don't see the scramble of livestock, just tiny hops and a little chirping in the background. This is the Smile Cricket Farm in a rural province in Thailand. In this room alone, more than 1 million of them are on a 45-day cycle from egg to adult to harvest. These small crickets are one of the best sellers in a range of insect convenience snacks now sold under the Hyso brand, Thai slang for high society. Rural Thais have long eaten bugs as part of their diet, but the idea to bag them up like potato chips is something new. Today, Hyso Snacks proudly proclaims what they are. The bamboo worms look like bamboo worms. The crickets look like crickets. You can also try crispy silkworms. They are all baked, not fried. They are now sold in 7-Eleven shops and in a major supermarket chain. The owner of the company says his next goal is to start exporting those snacks. That's all the time we have this morning. Sure glad you tuned in, but part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.